Hello everyone, welcome back to the Benchwarmers Podcast. In this week's episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Harrogate Town striker Aaron Martin. Aaron, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good to hear. So before we get into the Harrogate stuff, I think we should start off with where it all began. Obviously, you came through the academy at Sheffield United and Barnsley. What was it like coming through academies at big clubs who are sort of playing, well, right now, championship level?
It's, my perspective on being at academy was, I didn't think it was for me at the time, because I just thought at a young age, it very much felt like a job. Being young, you're there 3-4 times a week, training, playing games. You're not really in a league. You're just playing like friendlies. So it wasn't the best time for me, because I'd rather just been on the park, play football with my friends, which I enjoyed more. So when I came out of that and then I went into the non-league scene, it was probably a better experience for me. For other lads that wasn't in the academy, they, really liked it and they seem to have got good experiences from it.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people who go through academies at clubs as big as Sheffield United or Barnsley, they usually get coaching badges just sort of like during college or however they're learning, because with the club, I believe they get the coaching badges. So did you get any coaching badges while with them?
No, I was still, so when I went to the academy, I was in secondary school.
Okay.
The badges then wasn't even a thing. It was just, concentrate on playing and getting education, which the academy do focus on. If you're lacking in the education side, they can pull you out of the academy. So that was one of the things that you have to concentrate on as well as football.
Yeah, and was there any players in those academies who've gone on to have as good as careers as you have?
Well, there were a few players that I played against. I think John Rooney was one of them. He was at Man United. He was at the age of like 13, he was a big unit, and you could quite clearly see that he was dominating that age group. He was playing for the year above as well. There's a few more that were played against that you could see that was they was going to go on to have good careers, because you could just see the quality from the young age.
Yeah, definitely. Then, like you mentioned before, you moved on to joining a few sort of local non-league teams. The first of which, I believe, was Staveley Miners Welfare. And with Staveley Miners, you won the league trophy with them in 2008/9 season. How much of a step up did you find it from youth football to actual like non-league professional football?
Every league has its battles, and for me it was, I was just playing for another team. I didn't compare it to the academy. It was just trying to do what I could in that team at that time, which was Staveley was a good club. I liked it there. I played centre mid, believe it or not. There, I was actually a striker at that point. I'd always played centre mid, so I used to play centre midfield there. But good. It was the experience is obviously not as professional as the academies, and you've not got the same facilities. But then the other side of it is that you build character from doing other things. You're trying to travel to games. The coaches aren't as good. Everything's left down to volunteers. People that are involved with the club, so it's a bit more tight knit community, rather than just having a lot of bodies around. And plus, you get to meet people at first hand. So when you're in the academies, you kind of only really get to know your coach and players at your age group. Whereas when you're at them non-league clubs, you shake hands with chairman. So you kind of have them relationships with people that are, at top of the tree. Club. So that's good for young players. To meet first team players and meet the people that put money in the pockets, such as the chairman and stuff, that have them important decisions and job roles. So it's good as a whole at non-league.
Yeah, and obviously, like you mentioned, you were playing midfield there. That's quite a combative role then, and I believe you was only 17 years old. So physically, did you find it challenging, sort of competing with, obviously at non-league, your typical stereotypical sort of big tall, strong midfield. Did you ever find it difficult sort of relating to that?
No, I always found it as a challenge, and it's from when I was younger. I'd always played football with people older than me, just because I was just about good enough to play with them. So when you used to people having that physical edge over you anyway, that are 3-4 years older, you have to become tougher and stronger to be able to play. Because when you play street football, sometimes it's ruthless. There's no referee there to help you out. You just have to get up and carry on playing. So that's probably helped me a lot more, and be more aggressive on the pitch for when I've got older, and be able to take certain tackles and go into challenges. And be the player that I am.
Yeah, and moving on from Staveley Miners, you went to join the Worksop Paramore Sports FC, where you were crowned champions of the Central Midlands League. Obviously, bar the league trophy with Staveley, this is sort of your first league title, I believe. So how surreal of a feeling was that?
I was actually involved too much because that was the first team. I was in and out the first team at that point. I was mainly with the reserves because the strikers there was doing so well. So that's when I actually made the transition from midfield to striker. When I went to Worksop Paramours, I went on trial there after leaving Staveley, and it didn't feel like it went well. I went there as a midfielder. The chairman came in, pointed the finger, and said, "You're not a midfielder." Didn't say anything else. Left it at that. He then pulled me aside a few minutes later. I said, I didn't mean in a bad way. I just thought that he'd be better as striker. And then he put me up front that season. And I managed to get 28, mainly for the reserves. And played the odd game for the first team. So that trophy that we won for the first team didn't really feel like it was my trophy, because I wasn't playing regular in the first team. It was more the reserves for me. So when we won, it was a bit empty for me because I've not had that involvement. So that it didn't really mean too much to me when we won that cup. But obviously, it was great for the club.
Yeah, and obviously in that squad as well, you had the likes of Lee Thompson, who has had a really good career, played in the Football League. He also played for the likes of Boston, Kidderminster. As you were just a youngster at the club, I'm not too sure how much interaction you actually had with him. But with players who've had as good of a career as he has, playing at the same level as you, did you go to him for like tips or help with anything?
At the time, I didn't actually realise the clubs that he played for. I've always played a lot of football, but I've not really followed the game too much, especially in the non-league side of it. I've never, kept tabs on stuff. But I actually had quite a good relationship with him, Tomo. Yeah, and he was while I was at Worksop Paramours, he was always really good to me, and he gave me bits of advice to help me, especially with runs, and him feeding the ball to me from midfield and telling me where to go. He felt that the gaffer was coming down on me for something, and he didn't feel it was right. He'd step up and say something about it and say, "No, I think you're right there, Azza. I think you're doing the right thing." But someone might have misread a run, or I think the gaffer's wrong for telling you to stop doing that. So it was always good for me in that type of sense, and he always spurred me on and gave me good encouragement.
Yeah, and from Worksop Paramore, you moved on to Sheffield FC, obviously well known being the world's oldest club. Joining that club, how much of its history did you know? Did you I imagine you might have known it was the world's oldest club, but did you know how sort of big of a club it is for non-league?
I knew, especially being in my hometown, and I know about Sheffield FC and their history, and especially for me was that if I did well there, how much coverage they kind of get. Being a non-league club, just because they're the oldest club in the world. So that was, for me, was encouragement itself. It was motivation. I thought, if I do well here, I'm going to be seen by other people. You know what I mean? People will see you at that club. So it can motivate young players there. There's other people that knew exactly the same information that I did. That thought, if we do well here, we could be seen by other people. We could use that as a stepping stone.
Yeah, and at Sheffield as well, you played under Curtis Woodhouse, who obviously is from a footballer turned boxer. What was your relationship like with him then? What was sort of his like managerial styles?
I think I think me and Curtis had a bit of a cat and mouse relationship while I was there. Not that it was a bad thing. I've spoke about him with a few people before, and I'm a bit rebellious myself, and I feel that his kind of style of management, the way he would try to say things towards me, spurred me on, and maybe he was doing that to get the best out of me, because whilst I was at the club, I felt like I was the fittest that I've ever felt before, and I felt really good while I was there, and maybe that's to do with how Curtis managed me. Sometimes we'd be on back and forth with comments that would say nothing, nothing bad, but he'd say little things that would get you thinking about things.
Yeah.
And for me personally, is he trying to, what's he trying to say? And then be something that I'd want to work on my game and think, well, I'm gonna prove him wrong, for even putting that thought out there. So in a sense, I do think he had a way of getting the best out of me, because I think he was different with other players as well.
Were you sad to see him recently games with Trinity then? Because I believe he's gone for a job up in Scotland. I'm not too sure about that, but were you sad to see him jobless?
Yeah, I know he can be a controversial character. As so many people that have seen his Twitter account and back up. But I think he definitely has a place in the sport. He's a very driven person. He knows what he wants to do and where he wants to get to. And I know he wants to manage as high as he can, and he'd like to get a club in the league. So he's very passionate about the job. So sometimes that reflects bad on him by things that he may say, but he loves the game. And sometimes when you do talk with emotion, it can reflect bad on you, but he has that desire. He loves everything about football, which ultimately it comes out in other people as well. So when he manages, he can either bring that out of people, or it can go either way. Which I think that's the manager role. I mean, you're never gonna have things great. You're always gonna rub someone the wrong way and other players good, because ultimately you can only pick 11 players for the pitch. But I think he's a great person for the sport, and it was a bit sad to see him jobless at one stage.
Yeah. Whilst Sheffield FC, you spent 5 years there, and I imagine you probably converted into a striker by this point. So, how good of an experience was it for you playing non-league, getting obviously games under your belt? How good of an experience was it for you to properly turn into a striker then?
Yeah, that was for me. There was good years. It was about obviously trying to learn the craft as good as I could, and learn from people that was there. And these little things as a striker that, especially coming from midfield, that you don't really feel like you should be doing, especially positionally wise. Certain positions that you should be in on the pitch. Your game's a lot more structured than just going out and playing openly. And these little things that I still need to work on now, that I'm trying to learn from strikers that you watch in the Premiership. There's always things you can be trying to learn. So they was good years, obviously, just get the practice in, and always try to better myself. But it definitely gave me the tools to push on and progress in the game.
Is there a certain striker in the Premiership who you watch closely because you want to be more like him, I guess? I mean, obviously he's in the Premiership, so you're going to want to be anyways, but you know what I mean? Is there a certain striker that you watch closely?
Not particularly now. I'd say that I try to watch them more and try to get much from them all, because they're all slightly different. But when I was younger, the main person I'd watch was Thierry Henry. That was my idol for me.
Yeah.
And not that I play like him. I think we play very different, but that was someone that I always wanted to try base myself on. you know, unfortunately, I'm not blessed with his abilities. But you know, whatever I could learn from his game, you know, and try to put into mine, that's a bonus.
Yeah, and from Sheffield, you went on to join Brighouse. What's your relationship like then with Vill Powell, the manager? Because I believe he's still there to this day.
Yeah, very good relationship. Bill's actually a cousin of mine.
Oh, okay.
Saw that opportunity come about. You know, he asked me to help him out at Brighouse. I was happy to. And, you know, went there, and you know, we had a good set of lads. That was there, real good dressing room. It's actually the best dressing room I've ever been in.
All right.
To this day, like really good set of lads that, you know, wanted to play football. Some great quality in there, and that's probably why I did so well while I was there.
Yeah, and Toki doing well. We got 30 goals, 11 assists in 42 games. So in terms of confidence, then, how obviously because at this level you were scoring goals for fun. Did you kind of know that you could play at a higher level at this point?
Yeah, you know, at that stage, I always believed I could play higher, and the dream was to play league football. I weren't sure how that route was going to come about and if I was ever going to get there, but I always thought, whenever I score goals, there's always a chance. You know what I mean? No matter what age you are, if you score goals, people are always going to see that, and someone will take a gamble on you.
Yeah, and it worked out because at Brighouse you got Player of the Year, top scorer, Players Player. But I'm going to focus on the Players Player a bit because obviously when you're a striker, you've got obviously teammates giving you assists. How much of a boost is it to know that your teammates rate you so highly?
It's massive. You know, I already knew without getting the Players Player, I already knew that, you know, I was rated amongst the players anyway, and more than that, the players had respect for me, which obviously meant a lot more than any trophy. And I think the real factor was that, you know, there'd be certain games where I may miss or I'd have a slight knock, so, you know, I wouldn't play, and players would come to me directly and tell me that they're not as confident, that I'm not on the pitch to play the game, which, you know, was a real shock for me because I'd never seen myself in that type of way, and to know that, you know, good players, you know, aren't feeling as confident as they usually are because I'm not on the pitch, just showed me the amount of level of respect that they had for me.
So how did we move to Guiseley come about then? Because obviously that's a higher level.
Yeah, so the move to Guiseley came about when we won the playoffs at Brighouse and didn't get promoted because of the point system at that step. So we didn't go up, and, you know, I knew that I was getting older and I needed to try progress. And, you know, I had lots of offers from clubs, you know, different levels, and you know, some offering more money than others. But my focus was always on playing at the highest level possible at a club that was mainly suited for me, that I felt like I could do all right at. And when guys had come along, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. Even though I'd had other offers in the National North at that stage, but no one that I felt confident in. And then once guys came along, the deal that they offered me, and obviously that level, it was, you know, it was just perfect for me.
Yeah. You worked under Marcus Bignot and Russ O'Neill. Obviously, they're the joint managers of guys that still are to this day. What was your relationship like with them then? Because obviously, with a joint management system, it might be a bit tricky, or you might be closer to one manager than you are the other. What was your relationship like with them?
I had good relationships with both of them. You know, I still keep in touch with them to this day. You know, I think they're a good partnership in, you know, in what terms of what they bring. Management wise, you know, Marcus likes the tactics. Russ is a bit more old fashioned. You know, he likes the aggression, the energy. You know, he's a bit, some would call him a bit old school, but, you know, he's the one that gets the lads fired up for the game. So without him doing that, you can't execute Marcus's tactics, which I really liked. For me, it was, you know, I was getting the best of both worlds because, you know, I'm very much kind of like Russ, and energy-wise and that aggression. So he was good at getting me fired up for each game, but at the same time, I was getting real like professional experience from the way Marcus was trying to manage us tactically, which is something that I've not really had, and that for me felt like the difference between the levels. The professionalism that Marcus was trying to bring tactically, I could already tell straight away that I was at a step up, just from how he was trying to run as a team.
Yeah, and in terms, sorry, go on.
It's all right, carry on.
I was just going to say, in terms of a step up, would you say that the National League North is quite a big step up then compared to what the level that Brighouse were
at? It is a step up in terms of facilities and the stature of the clubs, but playing wise, it doesn't seem that much of a step up. Obviously, there's players with quality that play in that league, and people are fitter than Evo stick, and I played at high levels, so you do get that, but I don't think there's that much difference. I didn't change the way I played, and I still use one of the sayings that Russ said to me when I came to the team. He said, "I don't want you to change anything about how you play, because I just want you to be you. Do what you've been doing at Brighouse, exactly the same, but I need you to be 5% stronger. I need you to be 5% more aggressive. Everything you do, I just need that little extra 5%." And he goes, "You'll be fine at this level." And I took that on board, and obviously it worked for me.
Well, yeah, definitely. You went on to get 17 goals in 23 games, but your season was kind of put on hold a bit by getting injured. How difficult did you find it to get back to full fitness?
Yeah, it wasn't, for me, it wasn't that hard to get back to full fitness, because I'm a very motivated person, and especially when I do get an injury, it enabled me to get into the gym and do my own training, to work my way back, which is something that I love doing. I love getting in the gym and training myself. It gives me a real confidence boost when out on the pitch, and it makes me feel like I'm actually actively doing something recovery wise. So once I did get injured, I was in the gym daily. I'd be doing everything I could to try to get back as soon as possible, and just to feel as good as I did before I got the injury. But at the same time, I have to listen to what the physio was saying, and not overdoing it, and not trying to recover too quick, and not putting too much strain on my body, which can be hard at times, because you feel like you want to be doing more, and sometimes they'll tell you to rest for a day or two and just heal, and you just feel lazy because you used to be inactive, so you don't feel like you're actually doing anything. And that's probably one of the hardest things to deal with when you're injured. You don't feel like you're actively doing anything to make yourself get better, but healing and resting for a few days is probably sometimes the best thing you can do. So it's more of a mental thing than the physical one.
Yeah, and what's it, guys? Like, right, I think that you played alongside Kane Felix.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I believe, were saying at the time that obviously you and Kane Felix in the National League North together was probably one of the most dangerous strike partnerships in the league. So what was it like playing alongside someone as good as Kane Felix?
I felt very slow.
Yeah, he is quick, to be fair. He's quick.
I felt very slow because Kane's an absolute speedboat. And his pace over 5 yards is probably one of the quickest I've seen. I don't think I've seen anybody that quick over a short space. But Kane's is a very good player. The way he can run past people is ridiculous. And to say how slight he is and his size, he's very strong. We used to, a couple of lads, we used to make jokes when he'd be running with the ball, because he'd run past people, and then he'd find a situation where he'd have like 3 players around him, and he'd be trying to hold one off, and he could actually like fall over and still manage to get the ball back. You know, he'd be on one knee and then he'd get up and still have the ball and get away from players. And we're just like, how's he managing to do this?
Yeah.
That was just one of his strengths. Like I said, he's ridiculously strong for his size.
Yeah, and I know quite a few guys fans, and obviously you're a fan favourite for how well you did there. So when leaving, how did you feel towards the fans? Obviously, did you feel bad for leaving? And do you have like a message to the guys, fans that you'd like to say?
I didn't feel bad for leaving because progressing in my career, and it was obviously a very good move for me. But I still have some of the guys and fans message me that I interact with now. That's something I did quite a lot when I was there. The periods where I was injured, I travelled to the games. I'd watch the games. I'd always sit with the fans and talk with the fans, and especially in the bar after. We'd have a chat and stuff like that. So, I still interact with them now, and I do plan to once we're COVID free, should I say, and I'm be able to go to the football matches again. I will be going to some of the guys' games once I can and seeing the fans again.
We'll get on to your move to Harrogate then. But before I do that, because obviously Harrogate are a full-time club right now. Yeah, they're in the EFL. A full-time club, guys are a part-time club. So whilst obviously playing through non-league, playing these part-time clubs, did you have like another job that you had to do alongside it?
Yeah, I had a few jobs whilst I was at Brighouse. I was a scaffolder, which was challenging because it's hard work and strenuous on the body. So sometimes I'd be up at 5:30 in the morning. I'd do a full day's work and then I'd go and train at Brighouse, and sometimes I'd be exhausted from carrying weight all day, which was quite challenging at times. Especially I was playing every minute of every game. And there was a period where I think we had a break during our games where we had a week off, where we didn't have a game, and the management staff just had to say to me, look, you just have 2 weeks off, don't come training, don't do anything, just 2 weeks off and rest because you're exhausted. And that's what I did, and I was lucky that they was able to treat me like that and give me that time off so that I could carry on playing the same every game. So I'd be 100%. When I went to Guiseley, I was the electrical wholesalers delivery driver, which so it was a bit easier on the body, but mentally it kind of drained me a lot, just driving around all day, and then having to drive an hour and 20 minutes to Guiseley didn't help at times. These are the struggles of non-league football. There's many people that I know that have the same struggles, and some people travel further. That's why I think obviously I've had the luxury of coming to a full-time club now and experience it. And non-league football is so much harder than full-time, just because of of the balance. You're working full-time. You're playing part-time football. People like to go to the gym because they want to keep in shape. If training sessions get cancelled or they want to do extra bits, and at the same time you've got to try to fit time in with your family. Sometimes there's not enough hours in the day to fit everything in. So non-league football is definitely hard.
Yeah, and then the National League North season got put on hold, and that's when Harrogate came in, and you made your move to Harrogate. So how delighted were you? Because obviously you made your work from non-league to finally get a full-time sort of football role.
Yeah, I was really excited, especially when I first went there. Season was still carrying on. Things had not been locked down yet, and the seasons had not been null and void. So they were sitting second in the table, and the prospect of that we could get league football, I was buzzing about that. I could see my goal, and I could see like where we need to be, and I thought, right, just get me on the pitch, so we can start making it happen. You know what I mean? Every game's a step closer to playing league football. The day I signed, we had a game that was supposed to play Solihull. It was on a Friday. The EFL the league got cancelled before I signed.
All right.
So before I actually signed the paperwork, the league got cancelled, and I sat there a bit worried. I'm thinking the deal's not going to come through because I was waiting for the paperwork to come, and it was being printed off. And I thought, like, the league's been cancelled. They're not going to carry on with the signing because they had to pay fee. So that was, I had a worrying moment. And paperwork come, signed it. There was an error with the paperwork, so I'm thinking, it's not going to happen. But luckily the club went through with it. The paperwork got amended. It just took a few days before they could put it through to the FA. And then I didn't meet nobody for I think 4 months because everything had, got locked down. There was no training. Everything was Zoom. Everything was on Zoom. It was a bit of a weird moment because I was making jokes to my friends that I thought I was going to be a full-time footballer and end up being a full-time dad. So yeah, it was definitely a bit of a weird period for me. I was so happy in one instance, and then it kind of never just happened for a few months until obviously the playoffs where I ended up playing my first game.
Oh, was that your first game in the actual playoffs?
Yeah, the playoff semi-finals were my first game.
God, but yeah, obviously onto the playoffs then. We made you start at Wembley as well, which I think was obviously a fantastic achievement for you, but with no fans, maybe a bit of a dampener on it. But how just incredible of an experience was it to play at Wembley?
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. One that's always going to stay there with me. And there's a bit of a funny story that morning, which I'm sure a lot of the lads won't forget. We was room sharing. Our share was Scott Brown, and we had football on before I went to sleep, watching that, and I couldn't sleep. All I'm thinking about is the game. Thinking, right, we win tomorrow. It's football league. So I ended up going to sleep probably about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Well, I tried to go to sleep, and then trying to go to sleep. Brown he's snoring. I could hear him snoring. I'm tossing and turning in bed, and I've got football on in the background, which I can hear. And I'm dreaming. All I'm thinking about while I'm dreaming is football, scoring at Wembley, and I can hear. Obviously, I've got football in the background. I can hear like crowd cheering, so I'm hearing that in my dream as well. Like a full crowd of cheering. And I couldn't sleep. I probably got, I think, an hour maybe actual sleep. So at 5:30 in the morning, I was doing laps around Wembley Stadium.
Wow.
Yeah, I was walking around Wembley Stadium at 5:30, just looking at it, just preparing myself. I think about 6 o'clock, I managed to find a coffee shop that was open. And I sat in there with a coffee, and I took a picture and I put it in the group to all the lads. So when I finally got back to the hotel, and all the lads had seen that I'd been up from so early, they were just like, "Asa, what are you doing? What are you doing at that time in the morning?" I said, "Lads, I can't sleep." I said, I'm so excited for the game. I'm like, I'm buzzing. I can't sleep at all. Energy's just surging through my body. That made them all really nervous. The fact that people are seeing me nervous, it made them nervous until we stepped onto the pitch to have a look at it, and then everybody was just quiet. There was just silence around the whole team. Everyone's looking around, and that moment, everyone was in game mode. No one was nervous, and we were just like, we're going to win.
Yeah.
We're going to win, because everyone's that focused on winning and wants to win that much. There's not a chance we're going to let it go past us.
Yeah, and then obviously you did win as well, and you got promotion to the EFL. How proud of an achievement was this for you? Because obviously you've gone this massive journey to reach this point. Just how proud were you?
Yeah, it was a real moment for me that, it probably took a little bit to know that I'd actually achieved it. It didn't hit me straight away. I'd been building up to this moment, and I finally achieved it. And I think I was in shock. I was a bit speechless. I didn't know what to say. I was just, remember I rang my partner, just like, oh, I've done it. And, she's in tears down the phone. And I was kind of like in a daze where, sun's shining, all the lads, they're speaking to the families and stuff. And it's like, I'm really here. The disappointing fact was that there was no fans, but, it was still a real moment for all of us. And yeah, it was just a real memorable moment to just, that kind of achievement.
Yeah, and the manager which led Harrogate obviously into the EFL was Simon Weaver. What's your relationship like with him? Because it's quite an incredible story, the journey he's taken Harrogate on, with his dad being the owner, from him taking them from National League North to the actual EFL. So what's your relationship like with Simon Weaver?
Me and the gaffer, we have a good relationship. I think he sees me as, this kind of spearhead of the team at times, to try and, lead them, like with my aggressive ways and the way I press defenders on the pitch. And, it starts from the front. And if you do it, sometimes it's just like, if you do it first, as it's infectious through the team. If you keep pressing and, win the ball back, that goes down through the team and everybody else gets on it. So we have quite a good relationship. At the same time, I feel like he probably feels quite similar to me in a sense that he's come up the ranks kind of through non-league football the same way I have.
Yeah.
And, we're all experiencing, especially the majority of the team, we're all experiencing Football League for the first time. So it's a journey that we're all on together. And having the first experience of, because most of the lads are from a non-league setting. And, the gaffers always look to kind of lower leagues, the people that are hungry like myself to improve the squad. That's why, it's probably had its success that it's had over the last few years, because, it's full of hungry players that want to do well and get high.
Yeah, and a player who's also there, who I'm sure you can also get a lot of experience from, is John Stead. Played at Bradford, played at Huddersfield. I personally love him because I'm a Bradford fan, and obviously that goal he scored against Chelsea helped us out a lot. So what's it like playing with someone who's got as good as a career as John Stead, playing at a high level, lots of experience? Does it help you out, obviously, as a fellow striker?
Yeah, Stead is a great character. And, from when I knew that I was signing for the club, and when we actually did get back training, it was someone that I was interested in meeting. But at the same time, it's, I was probably a bit of awe of meeting him, but at the same time, it's a teammate, and I was trying to, be casual. But obviously, I grew up watching Sheffield United, so I've been to games and watched him at Sheffield United. So, the fact that, I'll be playing in a team with him was a bit surreal. And I knew I could get quite a lot of experience off him. I just didn't want to ask him too many questions at once. At times I dying to pick his brain, but I thought, just relax and you get time to ask them questions. But Steady's, he's really good with the lads, with me and the other strikers as well. He's always trying to direct us. And, if there's anything that he can help us with, you know what I mean? Whether sometimes it's like just body positioning, holding your runs. He mentions that type of stuff to us, and just said, look, just try it, see what it's like, if it works for you, because every player is different. But yeah, he's always trying to improve people's game. It's just yesterday, he was giving me a few pointers on something in training. I'm trying to help me, and he's always giving me real encouragement while I've gone out on the pitch.
Yeah, and you've made 33 appearances so far this season in League Two. So is there a certain team you've gone up against this season who you thought has been, just difficult for you to play against?
There are a few teams that, I thought have been difficult. Obviously, a lot of the centre-halves, for me personally, a lot of the centre-halves, they're quite big. I think in the Football League, that's what, they tend to be. They try to pick big centre-halves that can hit it, kick it, and are good physically. So there's obviously been a lot of really good battles for myself and some of the centre halves. Team wise, I remember that the Newport game, the first half when we played them, they looked like a really good team. They were pulling us apart with the passing, and the movement just looked really good. But come second half, we had 10 men, and we was the better team, and we really dominated at times, but just didn't produce any goals with the 10 men. But I feel like that's what League Two. That's how it goes. Teams play really well 1.5 or 30 minutes, and then be on the back foot for the rest, and that's kind of how it's been all season during the game.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's a hard. Sorry. It's a hard league, and I feel like it's quite open. If you look at the table, if you look at teams, there was bottom half of the table in January. Some of them teams are pushing playoffs. Now, anyone can beat anyone in this league, so it's a hard league to judge.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that if Harrogate did have fans in the actual grounds, it might be, I don't know what's the word, more maybe rewarding playing in the EFL?
Yeah, 100%. Not that we feel. I want to say that we've been robbed of experience, but that would be the wrong word, because everyone's struggling through the pandemic now, and we're quite lucky that we're still able to work. Yeah. But it's definitely hindered our experience, and maybe some of the games that we've lost 1-0 could have been slightly different with fans, because they do have an effect when fans are there, especially if they're vocal and they do back you at times, keep that energy going. When you're feeling a little bit tired, you hear that roar from the fans, it just makes you dig in that little bit more. And sometimes you just, even when it goes a bit quiet, you hear an odd fan shout your name and try to give you a bit of encouragement. And we as players, personally, I try to drone a lot of it out and concentrate on the game, but I do hear it. Even though I try to block some of it out and concentrate on the game, I do hear that. And when you do hear something like that, it does give you that little boost. I think can I get to that ball a little bit quicker? So it gives you a little bit of an adrenaline boost.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say you've had a really good season as well, because you're the second top scorer at the club with 5 goals, the second top assister at the club with 6 assists. So how have you adapted your game when coming into the EFL? Because obviously you've got more assists than goals right now. So would you say maybe you've become a bit more of a team player perhaps, or you just maybe, again, I don't know the word for this, but just see more opportunities in passing it, I guess?
I think I've always been a team player. But I think obviously during this season, it's probably been more key to being a team player, and not that obviously I don't score when I get the opportunity or not try to score, but it's as much as about someone else scoring as me scoring. It's because it's about the team scoring. You know what I mean? So it might not be me physically that scores, but if we win 1-0 and I've helped someone else in the team score, the team still won 1-0 regardless. So it's not about who scores. It's more of just the team getting a win and getting them points on the board this season, and trying to push playoffs. That's what we want ultimately. So yeah, I wouldn't say, I don't think I've adapted my game, but it's just shown more opportunity for me to play other players through. Whereas maybe when I was at Guiseley, I was the person that players was putting through on goal.
Yeah. And in January, you had a really good month because you received the Football League World Player of the Month award. How good of a feeling is it to get your sort of accomplishments recognised?
Yeah, that gave me a boost in confidence. Because for a while I didn't score. I didn't think it was like 22 games, not had a goal for, and I started feeling the pressure. of needing to score more than wanting to score.
Yeah.
People start looking, and say, well, he's not quite pulling it, or he's not scored a goal in a while. Then you feel like you need to start scoring, and you want to score more than you should do, which can affect when you do get your opportunity. Sometimes you snatch it because you want it too much. You've got too much energy, and that comes out when you're trying to take a chance. So that gave me a real boost, because at a time where I wasn't scoring as many goals as I'd liked, people would still see my work rate and my what I was doing for the team. That was being seen, and people could see that for me to win the award. So it meant a lot, because as a striker, you tend to think that you just judged on goals rather than what you're giving to the team as well. It's quite easy to say, well, he's not scored no goals, so obviously he's doing nothing. But if you're working hard and you're creating opportunities for other players, but you're just not scoring as many goals, people can write you off. So it's good to be recognised in that light.
Yeah, and of course you recently signed a new contract as well with Harrogate. How much of a no-brainer was it to sign on for a few more years?
Oh, well, we're in a great position. The club as a team, we're forever getting stronger. New additions to the team. Some of the young players performing real well, and we've got great potential to, especially for the remainder of my contract anyway, to make League One. And I have no doubt if we don't do it this season, next season we'll be definitely contenders for playoffs. So it wasn't really a no-brainer.
Do you maybe look at teams like Lincoln or even Luton, who have come from non-league, got into League Two obviously, and then eventually just gone on to go for release? Do you ever look at teams like that and maybe take inspiration from them?
I think we have to, from club's perspective, because they've already done what we want to do, and they've kind of paved the way, basically. So I think if I'm the chairman or I'm the gaffer, you have to look at those clubs and see what experiences they've been through to know what might be coming our way in the future. Should we progress? So I imagine that's something they'll be looking at.
Yeah, and moving away from Harrogate Town, then you're 29 now, so you're sort of coming towards very slowly. I won't put you down yet, but you're sort of coming towards the end of your career now. Do you have any interest in potentially going into coaching or scouting or anything like that when your career does eventually come to an end?
It's something I've thought about. The coaching role. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if that's something I could do right now. But maybe that's because I'm just focused too much on obviously playing the game at the minute. Because I feel like to be a manager and a coach, you have to have certain abilities. I feel as a manager you have to be able to see things from the sideline that other people don't see. That's why you're the manager. And I think as a coaching role, you have to be respected by players and have that balance of authority with the players and friendships, to be able to manage them good as a group. But you have to have the respect for that first, which is something obviously I need to, if I do consider the role of coaching, which I probably will in the future, they're the type of abilities that I'll be looking to get and see from, especially and learn from maybe our coaching staff that we've got at Harrogate. You know what I mean? And having an odd conversation with them and seeing what it's like. And once you get that experience, you become more comfortable in the role. So maybe it's just about slowly learning it before I actually do it.
Yeah, and then sort of the last thing from me, I asked everyone who comes to the podcast this, and I'm pretty sure you've already mentioned it before. But what football club do you actually support?
I actually support Sheffield United.
Yeah.
So that's my childhood club. That I grew up watching, and my dad's a big fan. So I've always watched them. What
are your thoughts on the season, and if you really want to talk about it?
I feel like the lockdown definitely affected the club. because I think pre-lockdown, they was in great form, and I'm not sure what happened during the lockdown, but the team obviously was definitely different when they come back. Didn't look like they had the same intensity, or maybe it was just that clubs in the Premiership had figured out how they was playing, but they definitely seem like a different team. It's like likelihood is they'll be relegated this season, and I think they'll look to go again and be strong contenders for promotion next season. I think sacking Wilder, I don't think it should have happened. I thought he was a great manager for us, and if anyone was going to bring us back up, I thought he was the person that would have been able to do it. But who knows what's happened behind closed doors in that situation. Usually a lot more gone on that than the papers say. So hopefully, they'll go, if they don't stay up this year, they'll go down and they'll make some good transfers in the summer. I think that's what the club needs. Some good transfers, and then look to come back up.
Off the top of your head, is there like any manager who you maybe want to come in to take over from Wilder?
Not that I can think of. I thought he was a real good manager because he's come from managing lower clubs. Obviously, he's got a great, his CV is really good. He's had promotions with every club he's managed. But I think it's coming from, lower leagues, managing lower league. I think it's the mentality that he brought to the club. You can see that he doesn't take no nonsense. Players can't be big time around him. He wants people that work hard for the club, and that's the basis. If you're not working hard, then you're not even gonna have a good start with him if you can't work hard. And I think it's just them little qualities that he brought to the club, of what type of players he would attract and have there as a unit. Because once a manager once told me that if you can have quality players in the team, which can dig you out of games. If you've got a real star quality player, they can win your games. But when they're not playing, they don't tend to affect the game that much. But if you have a group of players that can consistently perform at a 7 or 8 rating level every game, you will win games because you're doing it as a team. And I think that's something that Wilder was able to create at the club. Everybody seemed to have a good game. No one seemed to have a real bad game. And if someone does, then other players are playing well enough to pick you up. I thought he was the right man for the job.
I think that's all we've got time for this week. So as usual, I'd like to thank my guest Aaron Martin for joining me. Aaron, thank you very much.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Yeah, cheers. And we'll see you all next week.